sales organization, you want 60% or better of your business coming from referrals.
And so now I'm learning that things are not so straightforward like that. That's coming with time, maturity, emotional intelligence.
I started getting into the environment hunting at 7.
Oh, wow.
Because I started to shoot the bow, bow and arrow and learning that.
What I learned is that people don't like the scripted version of you.
Well, guess what? That building was 100% leased, fully spoken for prior to certificate of occupancy.
I think that people don't see that. They just think, like exactly how you said, like it's just like, oh, I just woke up here.
There's two sides to passion, right? There's a harmonious side and there's an obsessive side.
Sometimes you expect the punch because that leaves the person open. So, I knew where to take my hits. I knew when to duck.
He looked at me straight in my face and told me, listen, I'm good whether you make it or you don't. I'm good. You're not.
Welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. So we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about relationships and recruiting. Recruiting and relationships, extremely important. Two things that usually make a big impact on growing a business, growing family, and the two kind of intertwine sometimes, you know what I mean? And if you could take a lot of principles from recruiting into relationship building, and you could take a lot of principles from relationship building into recruiting. And what happens is a lot of times things get stuck, either in the adaptive style or in the natural style. And sometimes you don't know which style your partner is working in, your team is working in. And sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, and it can sometimes be a cause for conflict and contention, right? So today I want to talk a little bit about how to avoid those pitfalls, okay? By, following basic concepts and principles that'll help you on both sides with both recruiting and relationship building. Okay. So my last, podcast, I talked a little bit about fatherhood, and, that was a fatherhood edition, actually, the whole episode. We talked about fatherhood. And the one before that, we were talking a little bit about, real estate. And I kind of want to make this one more focused on relationship building and recruiting, because it's not just recruiting in a work environment or in a workplace. And it's not just relationship building in a work environment or in a workplace. There's a lot that, there'll be similar, parallels in your personal life and in your professional life that you can see, that you can find inconsistencies or consistencies, or you can build consistencies around one or the other using pretty much reoccurring, I want to say, principles and scenarios in both instances. Okay. So one of the things that I think what people are starting to realize now, both in the workplace and in in a professional setting and in a personal setting, is that you got to be mindful of who you're around. You've got to be mindful of the company that you keep and the thoughts that are going through your head, and the thoughts that are going through maybe your partner's head, whether it's in a team setting environment, or it's in a professional environment, or in your personal life, right? You got to be aware of what's going through each other's minds, right? Because sometimes a thought doesn't really manifest itself immediately. It can happen, in interaction, right? So why do I say that? Because limited beliefs are a real thing, okay? Limited beliefs are a real thing. When you think about growing your business, for instance, right? And let's just say that, year one, you probably, netted about 80 to 100K. Okay. That's like after taxes, after all business expenses are paid, you probably netted like something 80 to 100K, whether you're a solopreneur. Let's just say you're a solopreneur doing your own thing, right? And let's just say that you're offering, a freelance service. Maybe you're a videographer, maybe you're a photographer, maybe you are a personal trainer, right? Anything along those lines. I think it's like a fee for service kind of deal, right? And so maybe you make, 80 to 100, right, net after everything is said and done. And it was a good year for you. But then year two, same thing. Year three, maybe a little bit of a decline, right? Maybe you hit like 75 to like maybe 85 net, something like that is a bit of a decline for whatever reason. Maybe you got comfortable, right? And you don't grow from there, and you plateau for like the next 2 or 3 years. You plateau, your numbers don't really increase, right? Is that due to a limited mindset? Is it due to a lack of effort? you know, why have you not shown any growth, right, within that period of time? Okay. Now let's just say the opposite is also true, where you start to show an increase, right? You know, maybe 10%, 7%, even 5%, sometimes even 3% growth, right? Why is that? Was that intentional, right? Or was it like a kind of, you just kind of were a little bit more in demand, and you weren't intentional, but there was an increase in the demand for your service, right? These are things that you got to think about when, you know, you're thinking about growing, when you're thinking about building a team, when you think about recruiting, when you think about bringing other people onto your business or into your life, right? And it gets a little tricky because if you're not intentional, sometimes what happens is we land on our inherent default. What is an inherent default? Well, you know, your default, like your inherent default means that, let's just say, for instance, if you're used to doing like, I don't know, 25 push-ups per clip, right? So that you want to do 100 push-ups, and then maybe you do like 25 4 times, right? 25, you know, 50, 75, then you finally hit 100 because you did 4 sets of 25, right? And then maybe you're like, you know what? You showed a little bit of growth, and then you decided, you know, I'm going to do 50 per clip, right? I'm just going to do 2 sets of 50, right? The amount of conditioning that you need for you to go from 25 to 50, right? Doing 4 sets of 25 versus doing 2 sets of 50, it's a matter of conditioning. It's a matter of priming, right? Conditioning your body, priming your mind, right? And where a lot of people struggle is that they kind of just feel happy. I don't care how I get the 100 done. I'm just going to get the 100 done. I can do 4 sets of, you know, of 25. I can do, you know, 10 sets of 10, right? They're not thinking about the how, they're just more thinking about the what, like what they want to get done, right? And sometimes you might get somebody, you know, who just like bangs out 2 sets of 50 really quick, and you're like, well, how? They condition their mind. They condition their body, and they prime their mind, right? And now let's just say that you're hanging out with that person, for instance, that does, you know, 50 push-ups, right? 2 sets of 50 to get their 100. What does that do for you? Does it motivate you for you to go from 4 sets of 25 or, right, 10 sets of 10? Does it motivate you to get to 2 sets of 50? Or do you have a little bit of hate in your blood because you're like, well, why does he get to do that and I don't, right? This is what a lot of teams struggle with, right? This is what a lot of families struggle with, right? How other people get to their ultimate goal using different means and different resources. It's not a matter of, for a lot of people, it's not a matter of how, but it's a matter of why. Is this person able to do 50 push-ups straight and I can only do 25, right? Why is this person able to hit, you know, 100,000, you know, their first year, and I'm still they're you know, first year coming in, and I'm still stuck at, you know, 85, right? Or I'm still stuck at 75. Like, why is that, right? Most people get stuck on the why instead of focusing on the how. You know what I mean? And if we put more effort and more concentration into the how, it won't be, you know, centered around the person that is actually looks like they're doing more. It'll be on how can you do more for yourself, right? And so when it comes to recruiting, what I've noticed a lot is that people want quantity, 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 but they don't focus on the quality. And what happens is when they focus on quantity, there's higher turnover, right? Because they focused on the quantity. They focused on how many people they had to pull in. And really what happens is when you pull in so many people and you're not thinking about the quality of the people that you're pulling in, you're going, you know, the quality of the service that you're providing is going to suffer a little bit. It's going to be compromised, right? So let's think about it. And how do you make it practical? How do you apply it to, like, you know, building your business or recruiting your team or even recruiting the right person to join, you know, your business, your plan, maybe even your personal life, finding the right partner, right? How do you make the right decision? How do you pick the right person? How do you select? What is your selection process like, right? Let's think about it. First thing that I see where people struggle with a lot is when they first think about, you know, okay, maybe now I have opportunity in front of me and I don't have enough time to get in front of all of that opportunity. Maybe I have a goal that I want to hit and I don't know, you know, I don't have enough time for me to hit that goal, right? Maybe, you know, I'm stretching myself too thin. Well, who do I need to look for so that I can really hit that number, so I can really hit that goal? Well, are you looking for goal-oriented people, right? What does it mean to attract a goal-oriented person, right? What does it mean to be goal-oriented? Are you yourself goal-oriented, right? When you think about measuring a goal, how do you go about measuring the goal, right? is the goalpost always moving, or is it just hard to reach because it's not a realistic goal? Like it's not within your means. You know what I mean? These are things that kind of block leaders, block agency owners, and kind of block team builders, operators, CEOs, because they're not really thinking about the ultimate end goal. They're thinking about right now, right? So there's this level of short-sightedness that's kind of like interfering with their progress, with their development, and with their growth, right? And so what does it mean to be goal-oriented? That's the first thing we got to think about, right? Well, if you want to go back maybe to your personal life, maybe you want to go, and a lot of people have to find it there, right? They'll have to go back to their personal life, and they got to say, well, what goals have I ever achieved? For me to even think that I can achieve this next milestone, this next goal, what goal have I ever achieved? And if you're more of a natural style kind of person, you're going to pull from your personal life, right? Because a goal is a win, it's a point, right? Think about soccer. Every time, a player scores, what do the announcers scream? It screams "Go!" Right? And it resonates. It's stretched out, right? Why? Because it was hard for them to score, right? We'll see that in basketball. We'll say he scored, right? We'll see that in football, American football. We say he scored. But when we watch football, like soccer, goal, that resonates. And it's like that goal, the reason that they shout it and they stretch it out is because what the hell that person had to go through to achieve and to score that goal. Well, that's what life is. Life is, you're going to have to go through a lot of roadblocks, obstacles, haters, everything for you to get to your goal, right? So the question becomes, when was the last time you actually hit your goal? When was the last time you actually met your goal? Was it a financial goal? Was it a goal for yourself? Were you trying to lose weight? Were you trying to gain weight? Were you trying to, read a certain amount of books? What were you doing? Were you trying to, build relationships or help a certain amount of people? What was the goal? Were you trying to increase in some way in your life? What was your goal? And when was the last time you hit that goal? Then you got to ask yourself, what were the roadblocks? What were the obstacles? And then how did you overcome those roadblocks? How did you overcome those obstacles? And then the last thing you want to ask yourself is, how many times did you actually do that? Is it once? Is it twice? Is it 3 times? How many times did you actually do that? Well, I have people literally go back to their childhood. You know what I mean? And I'm like, there are these developmental milestones that have to be set and met, right? So a developmental milestone means that at a certain age, a baby starts walking. At a certain age, the baby starts running, right? It can go that far back, you know what I mean? In your own personal development, okay? And there are these milestones that you'd have to hit developmentally for you to say that you're on track for growth, right? That you're growing in this certain metric, right? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing when it comes to, maybe recruiting the right people. And it's the question that you want to ask people when you're trying to pull them into your team, right? What was the last goal you set for yourself and how did you hit that goal? What were some of the roadblocks? What were some of the obstacles, right? Now, if you're focused on building, if you're a team of goal-oriented people, now you're going to have, an increase in the quality of the service, right? It's the same thing when selecting a partner in a relationship, right? Because if you're with the wrong person, and let's just say that, for instance, that you're the only one that's goal-oriented. You're the only one that's really focused on hitting the next goal, but the person you're with is kind of complacent with the mediocre lifestyle. Well, it's going to show, right? And it just might hinder your growth, right? It's why the divorce rate is so high in America. You know what I mean? Because one partner is usually focused on, providing, right? And then getting to one level, to another, to the next level, always constantly trying to conquer more land, right? Trying to conquer more obstacles, trying to do more and increase in some way or some other. But then there's probably somebody who, who's kind of happy where they are. And they're like, I don't need too much. I'm pretty simple where I am and I'm okay, right? But yet everything else around you has a sense of growth, right? Like the trees, they grow, right? Kids grow, right? Weeds grow. Everything around you grows. So how is it that a person that you might be with or might be on your team is complacent and is mediocre and has plateaued? Why? Do they focus on today and not 10 years from today? Why do they focus on today and not 3 months from today? It comes from usually how they grew up, right? It comes from, what was tolerated when they were growing up. It comes from those milestones, right? That you were either set or met or set or weren't met, right? And I'm not talking about when they were a toddler, but maybe there were expectations when they started getting into grade school where it was kind of the participation ribbon. Okay, you participated, so you're good, right? And they didn't want to knock it out the park. Well, this can be something that happens culturally, You know what I mean? Because if you look at different dynamics within different cultures, the bar is set a little higher in different cultures, right? I'd say compared to like, American culture. And I'm not saying that like all American culture or all, other cultures. I'm saying that in specific families within specific levels of production, there's always going to be a metric for those people, right? And it's why you see that there's constant growth within a certain culture, right? Within a certain background, right? Within a certain family, right? There's always going to be a level of growth where others are going to be, more complacent and mediocre. So when it comes to your selection process, when it comes to building your team and you're asking that question, what does it mean to be goal oriented? What was the last goal you actually set and met for yourself? That will help you build, a sense of consistency, right? Around whatever metric you're trying to hit, right? Because that's what it boils down to. Are you going to be consistent for you to be able to hit that goal, right? Now, if you find yourself, stuck and you're interviewing people that are, and I say interviewing people, it could be for work, it could be out, you're dating, it could be that, you're trying to put together a team, right? Whatever it is, right? Maybe you're trying to create a network of like-minded people, whatever it is. Being around goal-oriented people, again, we'll go back to the person that was, doing 2 sets of 50 to hit the 100 push-ups versus the person that's doing 4 sets of 25 to hit the 100 push-ups. What makes them different is how they hit that goal, right? Now, you're going to get that person who comes in and just does 100 push-ups straight, right? And that person that comes in and does 100 push-ups straight, it's just one set of 100. That person is primed and conditioned to just go all the way until they hit their goal, right? With no obstacles, no breaks, no nothing. They just go, right? Do you want that person on your team, right? Do you want that person to be the one to set, to be your operator, right? Do you want that person to be your team leader? Do you want that person to be your husband, right? Or to be, we're going to say husband for now because I don't know women that are doing 100 push-ups, but we'll just say, do you want that person to be your leader? You know what I mean? Because that person is not, there's no excuses. There's no breaks. There's no nothing. It's just 100 straight and let's go. Let's get it. We're crashing through walls. We're going through everything, right? Whatever roadblocks, obstacles, mountains, we're moving them out the way. We're bulldozing them, right? Why? Because it's going to get done. I want my result, right? That's a different kind of individual. You know what I mean? And not everybody can really, adjust themselves to be around that individual. So you got to ask yourself, who am I trying to recruit here, right? Am I going to, recruit somebody who's going to help me get to the next level? Or am I going to recruit somebody who just kind of wants to coast with me, right? Let's talk about the other thing that a lot of people get stuck on is the why, right? Why is this person wired this way? Well, it comes again from how they were brought up. You know what I mean? And you'll find it like people bring baggage from their last job and the expectations weren't being met, or maybe they were a little too much and they weren't trying to exceed the expectations. Same thing in relationships, like personal relationships. Maybe the last relationship they were in, it was kind of like never enough, right? And they couldn't do enough and they kind of were just complacent and they kind of wanted to move on to something else because when it came to it, that they were being held accountable, they just didn't see a point of going to the next level because to them, the next level wasn't realistic or necessary for them, right? Is that an error on their part? No, not at all. They just weren't wired for that. You know what I mean? And that's going to be like a revelation to you, right? And it's the same thing when you're doing performance reviews. Say you hire somebody on and then they stay with you for about 3 months and then, there's a probationary period and you're doing a performance review every month. You'll see consistencies or inconsistencies in their performance. And that'll let you know what they were actually wired for. And were they wired for sales? Were they wired for quality assurance? Were they wired for marketing? Were they wired for, for biz dev? Like what were they wired for? You know what I mean? Same thing in relationships. Was she wired to be a girlfriend or was she wired to be a wife, right? Was he wired to be a boyfriend or was he wired to be a husband, right? Was he wired to be with one woman or with multiple women? You know what I mean? You'll see it in their performance and the way that they deliver, right? And how consistent they are when it comes to delivering. You know what I mean? So a lot of these things you kind of gotta set the expectations at the gate, right? At the beginning, so that you know exactly which direction you're going to be going and if it's going to be worth your time and your efforts and your energy, right? The second thing that I see people struggle with, right? And it's gonna boil down to like quantity versus quality, right? Quantity versus quality. Quantity takes time. right? I heard what's his name, Joel Osteen, tell a good story one time about how a dog was talking to an elephant, and the dog was like, had a litter of pups, and the elephant was still pregnant for like 2 years, right? Because greatness takes time, right? Versus like, just pulling out a litter of pups that happens over a period of time. Maybe, what is it? I don't know how long a dog is pregnant for, but that happens faster than the actual elephant is born, right? And then when you look at, the size of what's being delivered, right? The elephant versus the pups, you can understand why greatness takes so long for it to be delivered, right? So that's what it is. It's the quality that's coming out. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, right? So when it comes to recruiting and finding the right people for your team, and exactly, it's the same thing. You can run the parallel of finding the right partner to marry and start a family with. That takes time, right? We can even take it to scripture and say that it took what's his name, Jacob 7 years for him to find, for him to get the woman, right? For him to get Leah, or was it Rachel? I think it was Leah, right? He got Rachel, but then, it took 7 years. He had to work another 7 years to get the other one, right? So it takes time. And a lot of people don't think about the time that it takes. You could look at the same thing with like Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and you could say that he wasn't profitable for the first 7 years, right? That he launched Amazon, and his investors, he had to explain to the investors, this is something that takes time, right? And so the risk versus the reward, right? The return on the investment was greater because it was a greater reward on the investment, right? Or a greater return on the investment, rather, because of the amount of time that it took. You see what I'm saying? So to find quality people is going to take time. It takes time to find quality people, to build out your quality team and give and put out quality service, right? Let's go to the second thing. Second thing, and I'll just like literally put down these notes here for you, because this is what I use to find the right people, right? When it comes to recruiting and building a team, and helping team leaders build their team, right? And and even to help my clients find, the right partners for relationships, right? Whether it be in a team setting or in their personal setting. These are like pretty much basic. I'm giving you 5, if I can get through the 5, right? But I'm giving you maybe 5 basic pillars of, recruiting and relationship building. Okay. The second one is, is to be purpose driven, right? Are you purpose driven? That's the question. Before you can ask candidates, before you can ask anybody, you got to ask yourself, are you yourself purpose driven? Okay. What is your purpose? What the hell were you put here to do? Right? What were you put here to do? Are you predator or are you prey? You got to know, because if you're prey, you got to know how to protect yourself against the predators. But if you're predator, you got to know where to go find the prey. Otherwise you don't eat. Right? Okay. So you got to know, which one are you? Are you predator or are you prey? And if you are prey, right? How long will you survive as prey, right? There's prey that know how to survive. Like a frog is not a predator, but frogs are not extinct, are they? You know what I mean? Right? And then you got like the lion is a predator, right? And the predator can be outnumbered by the hyena and become prey, right? So how do you protect yourself? And how do you maintain your reputation as either predator or prey, right? I mean, if you think about it and you can identify which one of the two you are, then you'll get to a level of how do you protect yourself from harm, okay? And then how do you, if you are prey, right? And there's nothing wrong with being prey. If you are prey, it means that you're not confrontational, right? You're not, when it comes to fight versus flight, 9 out of 10, you're going to flee, right? You're not confrontational. You're not going to fight, right? You're not going to put up a fight, okay? And you need to be somewhere where you're sheltered and you're safe. Okay. And that's okay. That's fine. That's just the way things are. That's the way you're wired. But you got to know that about yourself, first of all. Okay. Because if you hire a driver or you get a driver into your life, you might, be afraid of that driver because that person might come across as a predator versus, prey. Right. Okay. So what is your purpose? Let's get back to that. Like, what is your purpose? Is your purpose clear to you? Right. How have you validated your purpose? Right. How do you know that what you are doing is your purpose? Okay. You got people who are working the wrong jobs and they're working in the wrong position at their job for the longest amount of time because they just want to pay the bills. They got a 30-year mortgage, right? So all of this might happen because, they're just trying to get by through today for tomorrow. That's about it, right? Is that truly their purpose though? Some of those people can be amazing writers. Some of those people can be amazing storytellers. Some of those people can be amazing, content creators. Some of those people can be amazing teachers. Some of those people can be amazing pastors and priests. Some of those people, they have a gift and they haven't tapped into that gift. You know what I mean? Hey guys, welcome back. Denis Development TV. So today I want to talk to you about world domination. Just kidding. Today I want to talk to you about recruiting, right? And you know what? As a matter of fact, you have to think like you're going to dominate the world, like you're going to conquer the entire world in order for you to find the right talent. See, Genghis Khan had the right idea. That's what people got all confused about, how to recruit. See, what Genghis Khan did is when he took over your land, he didn't just take prisoners of war, he recruited the prisoners, he trained them, and he found out what was the most important thing to them, and they joined his team, and they joined his army. That's how he took over the world. That's how he took over a majority of the world during his day. And so that recruiting approach really works. That's what you want to do when you're looking for talent. You want to find people who have a specific need, who can identify with your cause, with your mission, that they have a particular talent, a skill set that they can use to amplify and bring your business out into the marketplace, to maximize the exposure of your business. That's what recruiting is really about. It's not about just finding people and giving them a paycheck, putting them to work. And I want you to understand, if you're looking for a position, if you're looking for a job, it's not about just reporting to work, collecting a paycheck and doing the bare minimum. It's about over-delivering every single time. Now, if you're gonna do that as a talent, the employer has to do that for you just the same. So you're talking, if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job in the workforce, you want to have a robust benefits package. You want to have, a good compensation plan. And it goes hand in hand with your performance. Now, in the performance-based industry, it's kind of like there is no cap to how much you can earn, and you can make as much money as possible in your respective industry. So you got to think about always be recruiting. When you're out there, who has the mindset that you're looking for? Who has visions, a goal for themselves, for their family, for their children, for their community? Always be recruiting, scouting talent. And the key word here is talent. What are they really, really good at? What are their skill sets? And how can they help you and your business? And in turn, how do you help them become a better individual? That's why I created my top talent recruiting program. We source top talent throughout the country. Okay, I have access to people who are in the sales industry, whether they're in the performance-based industry, insurance sales, mortgages, real estate, HVAC, you name it. I have access to sales guys throughout the country. We also focus on healthcare, social work, community organization, you name it, we have access to these candidates. And what we do is we pre-screen every candidate to find out where their skill sets are, what they're looking for when it comes to long-term employment, and how they intend to provide value to their potential employer. So check out the website, Denis Development, that's DENIS Development, coachingservices.com, so you can learn more about my top talent recruiting program. Continue to raise the bar. And not everybody needs to be a predator, okay? And not everybody needs to be a warrior. Not everybody needs to be a fighter. Some people, and if you think about it, right? So like what I kind of tell people a lot, and I say this, it comes to my mind a lot. It's like, you know, back in like when ancient civilizations were being created, you had, people who were, you had your warriors and you had your scribes, right? And warriors didn't know how to write. They didn't know how to spell. They didn't know how to do any of that. They weren't, scholarly in any way. They just knew how to protect. And those were the predators, okay? And the prey were the people who couldn't defend themselves, okay? And they couldn't defend the village. They couldn't defend, their families because they were, I don't want to call them prey, but they had a different assignment. They had a different purpose, right? Their purpose was to record, right? So you might have, the person who was set up to record was really a good advisor, right? Because that person knew how to read, and they knew how to read, past instances where the village may have been raided and, they could have found a way to protect the village, psychologically, right? Strategically, okay, without having to use a weapon, right? And those guys were really good to have on your team. And so you wanted to protect them. You wanted to protect them because they had insight that you couldn't have, that you don't have, because you're a predator. You're looking out to hunt. You're looking out to kill. You're looking to protect and to destroy whatever comes at whatever you're trying to protect. So you don't have that. And so for you to partner the two means that, you can collaborate now, and then maybe you can teach the person of the other assignment, we'll call them prey. You can teach the prey how to find safe places to hide so that they're not targeted, right? And so that they can continue to record history for the next generation coming up, right? So it was okay that a scribe did not know how to swing a sword, and it was okay that a warrior didn't know how to write and how to read. It was okay because each one of them had their own purpose. Well, what is your purpose, right? Are you an operator? Are you a CEO? Are you a quality assurance person? Are you a marketer? Are you a salesperson, right? What is your purpose? Okay. And what's keeping you from your purpose? Okay. If now when you're interviewing people and you want to ask people, well, are you more purpose driven? Are you solution oriented? That's the other one, right? Because if you're solution oriented and you're focused on getting your solution, no matter what, you're going to get to your solution because you're purpose driven and your purpose is the solution. You see what I'm saying? Where other people are more problem driven, right? Conflict driven, and they don't even know that they're that way. It's kind of like everything to them is a problem. It's a matter of perception, how they see things, and they see things as a reoccurring problem, a problem again and again and again, and they're not solution oriented. So what happens? It's like they're chasing their tails. They go through this like revolving door, and it's the same problems. It's reoccurring for 5 years, 10 years, sometimes 40 years. Is a generation, right? That's how you get generational poverty. Yeah, because it's a reoccurring problem. It's a mindset. You see what I'm saying? So once you learn your purpose and you identify with your purpose, you're more likely to produce better outcomes, not just for yourself, but also for the next generation, right? And that's really what we need to think about, right? What is my purpose? And if I'm hiring somebody, why am I hiring this person, right? What's the purpose of me hiring this person? You see, a lot of people, they mess this up. And you see this happen a lot in personal relationships too. Like they get married and then they find out that the person that they married is not a good father. The guy was only thinking about being a provider as a husband. He wasn't thinking about providing for, an entire family, right? Maybe he didn't have a dad. Maybe he didn't have that experience, right? So he's not, the woman married the guy, but then when it came to being a father, he was like, conflicted, and maybe he didn't deliver as a father. So now the woman has to carry the weight and she has to be the provider, right? Because he wasn't clear on his purpose. You see what I'm saying? So, and it can happen the other way around too, where a man marries a woman and she was like, and all she really signed on for was to be a wife. But then the kid comes and she's like, well, we need to get a babysitter. We need to get, daycare. We need to get, and she's like outsourcing because she wasn't driven to be a mom to that extent. She was just thinking about being a wife. Right. And then maybe, having, a relationship with another driver. Maybe she's a driver. And so that's why you see there's like stay-at-home dads, right? Stay-at-home dad is kind of like, no, I just wanted to be around my kids. And it's kind of backwards. I get it. Like, I think it is backwards compared to how I grew up and how things were when I was younger. But today you get a lot of stay-at-home dads because it's only like the last 20 years or so, you start to see that men are kind of like wandering around with no purpose, right? And so it's weird. It's just like, my whole thing is this. If you don't know your purpose, you won't be able to produce the outcome, whether you're a predator or prey, right? The other thing that people get stuck on is like when you're recruiting and you're giving people an assignment, they're not clear on the assignment because the purpose is not in the job description. You see what I'm saying? And that is the same thing in the personal life and in the professional life, okay? So if you're going to get married and you put the job description that, we're getting married because, we're going to have a ton of kids. Well, now she signed on and she knows what she's signing on for, right? She's signing on to have some kids, have a family, right? And provide as a mom and as a wife. It's two separate roles. Same thing with the father, right? With the guy, like he gets married and she's letting him know through courtship and through dating that, I want kids. So he understands that his assignment and his purpose is not just to provide for himself and for her to provide for herself, but he has to provide for her and for the kids, right? And if he's clear on the assignment, he's more likely to produce that outcome because of the purpose. You see what I'm saying? So are you purpose driven, right? If you hire somebody to do sales, they got to know that they're doing sales, and maybe marketing is part of the sales, right? And so they have to have maybe it's like, 80-20, right? Which I doubt. It's probably going to be like, 60-40, 40% marketing, 60% sales, all percent sales, right? But you're going to have some kind of marketing, right? Unless you got like a marketer that you're hiring on strictly to do marketing and they do zero sales. You've got to be clear on the purpose, right? And once people can become purpose driven, 9 out of 10 times they're going to be oriented around a goal, right? And goal oriented, right? And also solution oriented, right? These are the basic principles to recruiting and to relationships, right? That you can not only, apply, but you can reapply. All right. It's a basic rinse and repeat. Okay. So the purpose driven and the, I want to say solution oriented are going to go hand in hand. Right now, some people are also driven by results. Are you results driven? Okay. Purpose and results can sometimes be conflicted, right? Okay. Sometimes they can be confused when you think about purpose and results. The two of them they're not the same. They're not synonymous. Okay. Somebody may have a purpose but they don't get the results that is expected of them. Because where is the expectation coming from? People that are purpose-driven set their own expectations. You see? People that are purpose-driven set their own expectations. It doesn't come from anybody else, all right? Because they're purpose-driven. That's it. They're not asking you to set their expectations. They set their own. So people that are purpose-driven are also results-oriented, but for themselves. You see? So like they have a standard for themselves, and they don't care whether or not that's your standard. They don't care. They don't ask you what your standard is. They're purpose-driven. They're all about their purpose. Like these are the kind of people that are, you know, they will fire people in a heartbeat. Like Trump, when Trump had his TV show, he'd be like, "You're fired. You weren't producing, right? You didn't meet your purpose, right? You didn't give me the results that I wanted, right?" So purpose-driven people usually set their own they have their own reasons and they set their own results. Okay, they set their own expectations. That's purpose-driven people. Now, results are for people like results and solution-oriented people. So let's just go to the results, right? If you hire somebody to do a job, let's just say that, you know, you hired a sales team and you hired somebody to join your sales team, and this person that you hired to join your sales team, they're expected to close at least 4 deals a month. All right. Or maybe let's just say 4 deals a month. That's all they got to hit, 4 deals a month. All right. And they keep falling short. They don't hit the 4 deals a month. Why? For whatever reason. They make all the excuses in the world. They don't hit the 4 deals a month. Is that person purpose-driven? Is that person results-oriented? Right? Based on your expectation? No. And then when you sit down with that person and you say, well, now I gave you my expectation, but I don't see any results. Where are the results coming from? These are the expectations that you set for this person to meet, right? So if they're not meeting it, they're not they're not results-oriented, right? Because they're not meeting it, right? And usually you can disqualify that they're purpose-driven because purpose-driven people set their own results. We've already established that, right? So when you're interviewing people, you want to ask them, what kind of results are you looking for? What kind of results are you looking for, right? Are you looking for, and results become outcomes, right? That's really what it is. What outcomes are you looking for, right? So when I ask somebody, you know, what kind of expectations, what are your expectations rather, right? And they'll say, well, I expect, you know, to work Monday through Thursday. I get the weekends off and whatever it is, right? And it's like, okay, I hear you. That's an expectation they have. But are they going to meet the results? Are they going to be able to deliver the results with those expectations? I don't think so, right? Because like the end of the day, if you're purpose-driven, it's not done until it's done, right? Because you having a result that you're looking for, an outcome that you're looking for, right? So it's, you know, in the workplace, it's easy to coach somebody and train somebody and say, okay, these are your challenges, these are your roadblocks, this is where you're struggling, and this is why you haven't been able to produce the results. This is why you haven't been able to establish, you know, a consistent rhythm, right? And then you can kind of coach them, but it'll have to come from them whether or not they actually want to produce to that extent to meet your expectation, right? So results-driven people, I got to be honest with you, they're hard to find because the expectations nowadays are so low. That's just the reality.
Hey guys, welcome back, Denis Development TV. So today I want to talk to you about a little discovery I made over the years. Turns out that there's actually a positive correlation between adversity and success. And what I found is that a lot of people are afraid of adversity. We're wired 2 ways, right? Either fight or flight. And most people, when they go through hard times, they run away, they flee. They trigger the flight mechanism within them. And so they don't face adversity head on. And because of that, they don't have as much success as they would like. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. 2008, Lehman Brothers happens, okay? I'm graduating right around 2009, and I step into sales and the not-profit space when I graduate from school. And what I realized in the sales game is that you were faced with adversity pretty much every single day. Rejections, constantly getting no, not getting any leads, trying to figure out how to pound the pavement and generate leads. It could be 90 degrees outside, you still got to get business, right? And the bills come on time every month, okay? And that's how it is, right? If you're living in the performance-based industry, in the sales game, right? Now, when I was working the 9 to 5, it was never enough money. I never had enough money to make ends meet and to meet my expenses. So what I realized is that the people who were the most successful, the people that I was watching the most, they were all dreamers. And that's the common denominator, okay? They were dreamers and they started to develop their dreams. They would actually hang out together, whether they were in the nonprofit space or they were in sales, right? And the dreamers would start to develop their dreams by talking about their dreams and creating strategies, tactics, action steps, training themselves, studying materials so that they become better at their craft. And that's why I started my Dreamer Development Business and Sales team and individual coaching program. Now, 2016, it was a really hard time for me, going through a divorce, a separation, and all I could do was dream, dream, dream. And that's really how I started to develop my coaching business, okay? And I started to develop my dreams. You see, what people don't understand is that coaching is not a hustle. Coaching is not a sales game. Coaching is almost like fitness. You gotta live this stuff, right? Because if you don't live it, there's no way you can become who you truly are created to become. And that only happens when you start to pursue and develop your dreams. Because I want you to dream. I want to dare you to dream. I want you to become a dreamer. And I want to help you develop your dreams through my Dreamer Development Business and Sales individual and team coaching calls. And the way we do that is literally over 2 to 3 coaching calls a month. We can get 5 to 6 of your team members on a live Zoom coaching call. And what we'll do is we'll figure out what makes them tick. We'll figure out what their long-term and their short-term plans look like so that they can develop their dreams over the next 36 months. Schedule your free coaching call so you can learn more about my Dreamer Development Business and Sales coaching call.
That's just the reality. The expectations today are just so low. The standards today are so low. So it's hard to find results-oriented people. So your best bet is to look for purpose-driven people. And when you find purpose-driven people, you'll get results-oriented people, right? It's a little insight for you, okay? And it's the same thing when picking your partner. When it comes to picking your partner, you know, you got girls going out today, they got the head tie on and, you know, the fake lashes and, right? When the baby's born and the baby realizes, you know, that they become of age, they're like, well, you know, the eyelashes don't go up as that high or whatever else the other standards are today that I'm not going to mention, right? That have become, you know, a little bit lower than what it used to be. It's why you don't get the results, right? It's why marriages fail. It's why families are, you know, 2-parent, single family homes, right? Because a lack of purpose-driven people. What is the purpose? Now, let me explain something to you. Very simple, cut and dry, right? Prince William was born for a purpose. Prince Harry was born for a purpose, right? The Prince of Morocco was born for a purpose. You see, like these kids were born for a purpose. They were supposed to be leaders of nations. They understand their purpose, so they act accordingly, right? When you hire a CEO, the CEO is hired for a purpose. You hire an operator, the operator is hired for a purpose, so they act accordingly, all right? And so they don't have problems, you know, understanding what their purpose is. And so they're purpose driven, okay? And it's the same thing when whether you're in a personal relationship or in a professional relationship, you have to keep in mind what the purpose of that relationship is, right? Because if you don't, there can be a breakdown of the relationship, which eventually in a professional environment leads to high turnover or just leads to turnover. And in a personal relationship, it leads to a divorce, right? So 2 things. We can just move on from there. The other thing that I look for, right, is more of a soft skill, right? And is this person selfless? Okay. Selfless people are all about people. All right. And the reason I say that selfless people are all about people is because they're not thinking about themselves. They're not putting themselves before, you know, other people's needs, right? And you know, even Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. He was selfless, right? For him to die on the cross, that was a selfless act, right? When a warrior goes to war and he goes to war, and it's probably just like, I love this scene, Kingdom of Heaven, watching it not too long ago. And Balian, you know, doesn't have, he doesn't have knights. And so he knights everybody that's there. He knights every man capable of bearing arms, right? And he's selfless because he was given the task of protecting the people, right? By his dad. And so he was selfless, even though he knows he can't beat Saladin. He knows he can't beat him, but he's selfless because he's out in the front line, right? He's not thinking about himself. He's thinking about his purpose. Selfless people also tend to be purpose-driven people. I don't make the rules. I just acknowledge what it is and I share it with you, okay? So you might ask a question to figure out, right? And make it a scenario-based question to figure out if the candidate is selfless or selfish. Because selfish people think about themselves first and put their own needs before everybody else's needs because they're selfish, right? And those are people that are usually driven by bonuses, incentives, external, extrinsic items, things, right? Selfless people are more focused on, they're more intrinsically based, right? They're more about the purpose and what it means to them, right? And how they can help other people, right? And those are the guys that are going to be like your right hand, right? Because they're selfless. They understand. They're also, empathetic, right? And that's the other thing, right? So if you hire a selfless person, right? Let's just say it's a little tricky, right? Because selfless people are also objective, which means that they're focused more on the purpose. They're not subjective people. They don't really think about, oh, this makes me upset, or this makes me sad, this makes me uncomfortable. They're like, well, I can imagine how you feel in this situation. And I'm sorry that you're going through this right now. Let me see how I can try to put things in a way for you to be able to still produce at, within your strengths, right? Those are selfless people, right? They're thinking more about how other people can gain from their efforts, right? That's what a selfless person is. So who are you, talking to that gives you any indication that they're selfless, right? And if you're asking a scenario-based question, something like, 10 people walk into a store and there's a line, right? There's a line and there's and you're the manager, right? Maybe you're at the register and somebody walks in holding somebody or pushing somebody in a carriage, right? Or in a wheelchair, right? Do you service the person in the wheelchair or do you service the 10 people on the line, right? And then you see how they answer, right? And it's a scenario because it triggers those emotional heartstrings. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, if I service the 10 people on the line, that person in the wheelchair, right, is in a wheelchair. So they're sitting, they're okay. The people standing are standing. Like they are not in a wheelchair. So obviously they need to get the line moving so we can drive revenue. That's one response, right? Then you've got the other response. Well, that person is in a wheelchair. They're disabled, I'll service them first. And then all the other people will see that the business is actually more about people than it is about money and churning and burning. And they'll understand, this is the reputation of our company, right? That we serve those who are underserved or disabled. You know what I mean? It's the idea of having disabled parking or parking for the handicap. You know what I mean? So if you ask these scenario-based questions, you can usually gauge how selfless or selfish a person is, right? And then the last thing I'm going to give you is somebody who's empathetic, right? Because if you hire somebody who's empathetic and they understand, right, and they can not just hire, but if you're also in a relationship with this person, right? Again, they're not thinking about themselves. They can kind of put themselves in that person's situation and they can understand what that person feels like, what that person might be thinking, right? And they can kind of meet that person where they're at, right? Because that's how you get a yes out of a prospect, right? If you're looking to build your business based on, quality of service, and you're looking to build a family based off of quality morals, right? Quality values, right? And that should go without saying. But if that's what you're doing, if that's what your goal is, then, these concepts, and these principles, they work in both scenarios, both professionally and personally, right? And to be with someone or to have someone on your team that can understand that maybe the last, the prospect was burned by the last person who sold them a product, right? Or that person didn't deliver, the person didn't come through, And now, they need the service, but they're thinking about, the last experience they had, right? If your salesperson, if your team member can pick up on that and kind of meet them where they're at, they're more likely to convert that lead, right? And that's what retention is all about. Now, I'll just bring it all together for you really quick, right? Because where recruiting segues into relationships, and relationships also segue into retention, that's where you get growth. Okay? And that's how you get 30-year marriages. That's how you get a lifetime client, right? That's how you get referrals, okay? Because one segues into the other, right? So if you want a long-lasting relationship and you follow these principles, the kids see it, right? And the kids, they want to mirror that. They want something like that for themselves when they become adults, right? Because it's all they know. It's all they've seen. It's all they've understood. That's how it's supposed to work, right? Anything that doesn't work, anything that works outside, anything that doesn't really work outside of that, they won't find themselves in that situation, right? Because they just will remove themselves instantly because it doesn't mesh. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? And in the same way, when you're hiring people and you're recruiting and you're interviewing, right? You'll know and they'll know, right? Because it's got to be mutually beneficial, right? People won't bring their baggage. They'll say, this is what happened at my last job. And oh my gosh, it doesn't happen here at all. And I love being here, right? And they'll tell their friends about it and they can recruit for you organically. Like they'll recruit for you. They'll get their friends to join, right? And that will lead to like not only retention, internal retention, but growth, because then you'll start expanding into other locations, right? And that's what's happening. COVID kind of gave us the ability to get into multiple locations at once through tech, right? Through Zooms, okay? Through providing a service, the same service, but in multiple locations. So that's expansion, that's growth, right? And you're able to do it because you have the right principles. You've applied the right principles to recruiting and relationship building, right? So I'm going to leave it here for now. The next one that I'm going to jump on, we'll talk a little bit more about real estate and relationship building within the real estate and sales, right? But for today, I kind of just wanted to touch on this because I think that's where I see a lot of people need a little bit more help and a little bit more consistency, right? So just to recap, right? You want to look for goal-oriented people, purpose-driven people. You want to look for results and solution-oriented people, selfless and empathetic people, right? Both in your professional life and in your personal life, okay? For anything that might seem, and there's a lot more, but anything that might seem that it's kind of like, associates with these traits, these concepts, these principles, jot them down and expand on them and see what you come up with, right? Because that's going to help you build a quality team, all right, of hitters and heavy hitters, all right? So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Share, like, and subscribe. And this has been the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line.